in it were actually one of the things that he is working on is learning how to control his aggression, right? Because sometimes when he gets too frustrated, too angry, there's a part of him that doesn't really know what to do with that feeling. Actually, watching him navigate that and learning to do that to me seems like an amazing life skill, right? That he gets to learn through fencing. I'll be honest with you, after every tournament too, we go for a nice meal somewhere. I don't know have you guys all been to the Suffering regional tournaments? Right? We always stop by Mount Fuji. Do you know where Mount Fuji is? It's a Japanese hibachi place, very close to Suffering. It's always a treat, so we will do something like that afterwards. All right, is there a brave soul in this audience that is willing to share something about their joy of fencing? Go for it.
The happiness you get once you win.
I love that, right? Winning is so fun, right? Absolutely, I love that. Anything else? Go for it.
How fencing builds my character outside of fencing.
That is so true. It does, right? It helps you deal with setbacks, it helps you deal with resilience and learning how to tough things out. Absolutely. So I want you to hold on to this, right? Because this is what we call intrinsic motivation, right? These are the things that this is why we do it. Why else do it, right? So these are the things that I want you to really hold on to and take that with you as you're continuing on your journey. Okay, so let's talk about building confidence, because that's a big, big part of why we do this too, right? This is sort of that character building that we were just talking about. It's not about being the best, it's about being better than you were yesterday. And by being better, that could mean so many things, right? And so what we really want to do is we're going to focus on the smaller goals and learning, and not only on the results, right? Because I will be honest with you, my son, who is still on the beginner side of fencing, he will go to these regional tournaments and will get demolished at certain points, especially in the pools, right? Or the DEs, like sometimes he won't do as well as he wants. If we're focusing on winning the whole entire time, it would be awful experience for him, right? And for myself, for that matter. What we do is before we go into any fencing tournament, I ask him, what's your goal today? Like, what are you working on? And he'll say, I want to get a certain amount of touches. I want to, do a perfect parry riposte, whatever it might be. He has a set of goals, small goals, that are very individual to him, that he will take with him into practices, into tournaments, and that's what we focus on. And if he does that, even though he gets demolished, you know what, we have something to celebrate. Like, let's go to Mount Fuji, right, and have that hibachi lunch. So this is really a big part about building confidence. And so a lot of people, a lot of psychologists, a lot of researchers will talk about this, setting SMART goals. This is really, really important, right? Because SMART goals, it's an acronym here, and it's really about creating a goal that is specific. You want a goal that is, I want to get at least 10 touches today, whatever it might be. It's got to be very specific and measurable, right? Achievable, right? I don't want my son to go in saying, I want to, get a gold medal at this tournament, because that might not be achievable. And it's got to be relevant. It's something that he cares about, something that's important to him, and then time bound, right? So it's something that is, like, you can say, okay, by the end of this time, we either achieved that goal or we did not. So I want you all to think about right now, what is a SMART goal that you would like to work on in your fencing journey? So is it Is it about a next tournament? Is it about the next practice that you go into? What might that look like? And I want you to jot that down. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And parents, I might ask you to do this for yourselves too, in the sense of how are you going to, and we'll go into a lot of this more in the presentation too, but how are you going to support your child in their fencing journey in a way that you want to show up for them? Because I think that's hard as a parent, right? I was just talking to I was spending Christmas holiday with my brother. My brother is a junior Olympic soccer player, and he went to Division I schools, was recruited the whole entire 9 yards. He has a son who's also a now elite soccer player, and we had tons of conversations about how it's incredibly hard as a parent to watch your child in these situations and not be yelling and screaming. He was telling me sometimes he just walks away. Like if they're on the field and his son looks up to see what his father's reaction is, he has to walk away because sometimes it's so incredibly hard to hold that, right? And to be that type of supportive parent. So even as a parent, I want you to write some SMART goals here. Does anybody want to share any of their SMART goals? I will share one of mine as a parent. The car ride home. For me, that is one of the most challenging parts of being a sports parent, because I want to talk about what can we do better, what did we learn, or like I saw that you weren't aggressive enough, or whatever it might be. But I know in that car ride home, that can make or break his whole experience of that tournament, of that practice, whatever it might be. And so for me, it might be specific, on the measurable, achievable, relevant, timeout. On the car ride home, the next car ride home, I am not going to tell him what he could have done better, what I saw that maybe he could work on. Instead, I'm just going to maybe turn on a podcast, talk about something else. We're going to actually revisit whatever it was that I wanted, that I observed and what I saw in him a different time. Anyone else, SMART goals? Okay. Self-talk and feedback. Now this is actually one of the most important parts of the mental game. Because the honest truth is that we all have an inner critic that lives inside of our brains, right? And that inner critic is telling us all sorts of things. Good things sometimes maybe, mostly bad things, right? That inner critic, and the inner critic has these different types. There's the perfectionist, the one that only wants what is absolutely gold, right? If it doesn't hit that gold standard, then everything is just garbage. The fortune teller, which is saying, ooh, like, I don't think I'm gonna do well at this match because I didn't sleep enough, or whatever it might be. Does anyone wanna take a guess on what's the historian voice? 100%. Absolutely, right? So, oh my goodness, I just lost that point. That means I'm gonna lose this match.
Did I just push on?
Am I back on? Okay. So the historian, right? So the historian actually, or oh, I just had the worst practice yesterday. I'm not gonna do well in this tournament, right? My coach was mad at me yesterday, and so therefore he hates me, right? The imposter. The imposter is when it comes, that's when all the self-doubt comes in, right? I'm not good enough, I don't belong here, I shouldn't be, in these, league competitions or league camps or whatever it might be. The generalizer, which takes one negative thing that happens and saying, you're just the worst fencer ever. And then there's the complainer. Now this is an interesting one, because the complainer will find every reason why something did not go well, right? The judge was not fair. The judge didn't like me. You know what? My parents said this thing to me right before I went on the strip, and therefore everything went wrong, right? It finds every other reason why something didn't go the way you wanted it to, and it sticks to it. Now, these different types of self-critic, that different type of self-talk, this is what eats away at your confidence, right? And what happens is that if you do it enough, if that inner critic comes over and over and over again, it starts to create a story. It starts to create a story that you're not good enough. It starts to create a story that, oh, maybe because, it snowed yesterday and, we didn't get to the club in time, I had a horrible practice. It creates all of these reasons and ways to look at yourself that makes you believe that you're not good enough to do well, right? And so we really want to be careful of this, and I think as parents, a lot of these inner voices that our children have are often, not 100% all the time, but are often our voices that are internalized into our children's heads. And so that is something to watch out for, right? And so whether it's the coaches who are giving you certain types of feedback, or it's as the parents on that car ride home giving certain types of feedback, or on the sidelines giving certain types of feedback, you really want to be cautious of some of this. And one of the main things that I do want you to be careful of, and this is kind of like an easy tidbit to take home, watch out for what they call absolute language. You never, right? All of those things that seem very black and white, those are signs that you are doing this type of negative self-talk or talk, feedback, right? Because the honest truth is that no one is always bad, right? No one is always never listens, right? Oh, you never listen, or you're always doing this. That's never true. And so we want to be careful about saying those things to ourselves, about saying those things to our children, because again, that's the story that ends up being created. Oh, I want to go back here for a second, because, so how do you, if you do have, frankly, a lot of us have these types of inner critics in us, right? So what do we do with that? I think first, it's really important that you're aware of that. I have a perfectionist inner critic in me. And that perfectionist inner critic tends to be harsh, right? It tends to be not realistic, whatever it might be. So I think you have to identify it. And so what I want you all to do is circle in that list, which ones do you think you have? Which ones do you notice in yourself? And I think it's really important that you notice that, because when you notice it, that's the first step to being able to change it, right? So you notice, okay, I have a, frankly, this is true. I am a recovering perfectionist, okay? So I do have that type of inner voice in me. And so I know that about myself. And so every time that type of inner critic comes out, I have to be like, there's the perfectionist again coming out, right? And what you do is you change the script, right? It's not that I always have to do this perfectly, or if I don't do it perfectly, then that just means everything was a wash. You can change that script to something like, okay, I didn't do so well this time, but you know what, I can do better next time, right? And so you really want to identify and know what kind of inner critic do you have so that you can actually change that statement around. Okay, I want to talk here about mental rehearsal. So mental rehearsal is defined in two ways. There's mindfulness and visualization. Have any of you guys heard about these two words before? Raise your hands, please. Awesome. Okay, some of us? All right, great. So mindfulness and visualization are two really important skills here because, frankly, our brains don't do a really good job of discerning what's real life, like what are we doing in real life, and what's happening in our mind. This is why, especially when you're younger, you get scared of weird things, right? The monster under the bed, like when you watch a movie, you think that the zombie's gonna pop out, behind the shower curtain, whatever it might be. These are all the things because our brains are not so great at it. But here's the thing, you can use that to our advantage here, right? So a lot of coaches will have their athletes look at, use time off the strip or off the court or whatever it is that the sport that they're doing off the field to visualize what they're going to do in order to do that mental rehearsal. So it's almost like bonus practice when you're not actually practicing, right? So a lot of times you can do it on the bus rides, you can do it when you're waiting in line. Now that doesn't mean that you don't have to physically practice. Obviously you still have to build the muscle memory and do that type of practice. But the mental rehearsal is great because you get to create all sorts of strange scenarios that maybe you don't actually get to practice in real life. And that way you will actually be prepared for it, frankly, right? So Michael Phelps did this, he speaks about this in his last Olympics where he was visualizing constantly all of his relays, all of his races over and over and over again. And so he started to get bored of doing it, frankly. So he decided to start to think of all the scenarios that could go wrong and how is he going to recover from those scenarios in the moment, right? So he would, okay, what if he did a false start? What if he jumped into the pool and his goggles fell off? What if he missed a number of strokes? He was coming up with all these mental rehearsals, right? And actually what happened was in his final, oh my God, what do they call it when it's swimming? Lap? Race? Final race, I guess, right? His final race, he actually jumped off the blocks and his goggles did flip. And so he was basically blinded in the water. But he had to keep going, right? You can't stop. But he knew exactly what to do because he mentally rehearsed it so many times. He knew he had to count the number of strokes till he got to the end, that he knew at that point he did a flip, and then he would count the number of strokes that he did all the way to the other side. And that's how he actually got his very last medal. So that's how important this visualization can really be. I want to talk a second here about mindfulness because I feel like mindfulness has gotten really popular recently in, whatever, Calm, 10% Happier. There's like 1,000 different mindfulness types of apps, and I think it's gotten very popular within mainstream. Mindfulness, meditation is the practice of mindfulness. Okay, so mindfulness is actually a strategy or skill. Meditation is the actual practice of it. I will be very frank and honest with you, I am not a good meditator. I cannot sit there for 20 minutes and just do these meditations. It's really hard for me. But what I can do is I can use mindfulness. I use it all the time, actually. All the way here, when I was writing here, I was doing a mindfulness practice. Because mindfulness is really about staying present in the moment, focusing on just one thing and letting things go, right? It's or what's called the ultimate flow state. It's what really helps you get into the flow state. So here's an example of the way I use it with a lot of my fencing athletes. So a lot of athletes will get really nervous, right, as they step on the strip. And something that I will say to them is, I don't want you to start thinking, you're allowing your mind to race, because it goes to all sorts of different places, right? Oh my goodness, this opponent is ranked so much higher than me, right? Or this person is, beat me last time, I remember, right? Those thoughts are not going to help you at all. But you know what they do? They actually step on the line and they start naming colors that they see in front of them. That's a mindfulness exercise, right? I see, okay, so, I see blue, I see white, I see red, I see gray, I see silver, I see brown. That's it. In that moment, I'm just standing there naming colors. And really what that does is that grounds you back in the moment. It allows you to let go of all of those negative thoughts that are not helping you, right? And so another thing that I have my athletes do, especially when it starts to get to 10-10, right? Because then it's like, ooh, stakes are high, the anxiety starts to creep up on you. Sometimes they'll just focus on breathing. Okay, I'm gonna breathe in through my nose, I'm gonna breathe out through my mouth. And just do that 3 times. That in itself is a mindfulness practice, right? I'm a behavior therapist, and therefore I try and walk the talk that I do. I frankly hate public speaking. It's one of my worst things. I was doing a mindfulness practice all the way here because I was trying to quiet my inner critic, right? That part of me that does not like public speaking. And so I was drinking my coffee and I was smelling I was noticing what it smelled like. I was noticing how it feels when I'm drinking it in my body. I, at a certain point, was naming colors that I saw. These are all ways to just ground yourself in the moment, let go of all those negative thoughts. And so this is really an important skill. That's the best way to put it. And the more you practice it, the better you'll get at it. So really, if you're going to school and you're walking, down into the school building, just notice, okay, what sounds do I hear right now? Do I hear birds? Do I hear cars? Do I hear people laughing? That in itself is just a mindfulness exercise. So really practice that. Now here's something that's really tricky to do when it comes to mindfulness. You have to do it non-judgmentally, right? Because I can't be drinking frankly, I don't love Dunkin' Donuts coffee, but that's all I could find today, right? So I was drinking it non-judgmentally, right? So I was saying, okay, I smell some coffee beans, there's like an aftertaste of creamer, whatever it might be. If I'm thinking judgmentally about it, it's like, ugh, this is bitter, I don't really love it, it's kind of watery, there's 1,000 different things that I could be thinking of, right? So let's look at this. Anyone tell me, what is this, a picture of? Yes?
Pizza.
Pizza.
With pineapples on top.
With pineapple on top. All right. How many people like pizza with pineapple on top? Show of hands. I actually do too. All right. How many people do not like pizza on top of pineapples? Pineapples on top of pizza. Yes. Right? So this is really something that people frankly feel pretty strongly about, right? They either love it or they really don't like it. So my question is, how do you look at this and think non-judgmentally about pineapple on pizza? And it's actually quite simple, but really challenging to do. You're just gonna look at the facts, what's observable, what other people can see, and you're not going to put opinions or feelings or emotions into it. So, can anyone tell me what do you see here in a non-judgmental way? Great.
Pizza.
Pizza, great. What colors do we see on this pizza?
White and red.
White?
Like white for the cheese.
Yes, red, uh-huh.
And also yellow.
Yep, yellow, perfect. Anyone else give me any observations that you can see? Just objective facts. I'm sorry, did you say something? Oh. What about the shapes? Do you see any shapes on this pizza? Great.
It's like a triangle.
Triangle, perfect. Yes.
The pineapple pizzas are like rectangular.
Rectangular, yep. Mm-hmm.
Is there a white background?
White background, great. Ooh, very observant.
The crust is kind of orange.
The crust is kind of orange, totally. Anything else? Perfect. That's a non-judgmental way to look at pineapple pizza. If you're gonna look at it judgmentally, you can think, that's disgusting, that's pineapple on top of pizza, that should not be happen. If you're thinking positively about it, you can think, oh my god, I love pineapple on pizza, it's so sweet and it's delicious, right? Those are all judgmental ways to look at it. But if you just look at things factually, what's just observable, that is a non-judgmental way to look at it. I see a triangle pizza with some orange crust, and there's white, yellow, red, square-sized pineapple slices. That's just, and if you think about it, that is a way to do it that it doesn't bring in the emotion, right? It doesn't bring in that type of like, oh, like that bout was so horrible, like that point should have been mine, that judge stinks, whatever it might be, right? So to do it non-judgmentally is an important part. Okay, have you guys ever seen this clip of the Blue Angels doing an imagery exercise? Do you know who the Blue Angels are? Okay, they are I think they're Navy fighter pilots. I'm pretty sure, but they're basically the best at what they do. And they do these amazing, amazing air shows. But these air shows are done to
the work, like the mental work, is like as important as the physical work, and it's not just like a one-day thing. So I think like to get out of anything today, it's like there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of strategies. When I was an athlete, like honestly, when I was coming up, we had to kind of figure things out on our own. And there was also just like a stigma about like, oh, by the time I was starting to end my career, almost our entire team, like, and now with the national team that I work with, we have sports psychologists that we work with on a regular basis, and I think people understand now it's like actually part of like having a really good training plan is developing like your mental plan. And looks very different for different people. A lot of stuff you're mentioning, like I would always, when I was warming up, try to visualize like feeling successful, great moments. I had teammates who had like 2-hour long like warm routines because they just had to like, that's how they took them to get themselves going. But to really get where you want to go, and this is stuff that's going to also transcend fencing. Like this is like really helpful work. Like how you deal with failure, how you deal with disappointment, how you deal with success. All of it is like part of the growing up that we do with our athletes. So our Chung is available as a resource for you from our club. We have I don't know how many athletes, because when we get to that level, we have a number of athletes that do work with her. You don't have to work with her, but I just, for many years, you always asking me like for recommendations. And then Unfortunately, she came walking in the door. I used to fence against her husband in college. So, you know, just hit it off with her, and she's been nice enough to come last year to talk to everyone. So, thank you again. I really appreciate it. If you want to say, hang out and ask her questions.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, everyone.